Start building dreams on the Young Money Show, where entrepreneurial dreams become a reality.
The biggest poison in us is regret.
I think there are a lot of people that have dreams and aspirations of things that they always wanted to do, but it wasn't the right time, or they didn't have enough money, or they didn't have enough experience. It's never the right time. You're never gonna have the right experience. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're 70. And you're like, God, I wish I could have done it.
It's what you don't do that screws with you later on.
I get one shot at this life. This is it. And I don't want to go through life being the 80% version of me. I don't want to look back and be like 77 and be like, I didn't do that. There's so much I want to do, and I love life so much, I don't want to miss it.
Hey guys, how you doing? My name is TakuDavid, and I'm joining you for a special session of the Young Money Show, where I'm joined by Cynthia Chigwenya, a lady who I've been very excited to chat to. I've been looking forward to having a conversation and sharing insights with you, the audience, and with her, and seeing what type of conversations we can build that will empower us as young Africans. I've been monitoring her work for some time now, and those of you who don't know what Cynthia does, I'm going to let her explain herself because I don't want to get it wrong. You know, all I will say is all protocols observed, ma'am. Is that okay?
No, thank you so much for inviting me, and great fan of the work you're doing, and just trying to spotlight the work that young people across the continent are doing. My name is Cynthia Chigwenya. I serve as the African Union's Youth Ambassador for Peace for Southern Africa. I'm one of the 5 young people that were selected by the African Union to represent Young Peace Builders Network. So young people that are working in countering violent extremism, young people that are promoting peaceful coexistence within their societies. So I am, if you may, sort of an intermediate or bridge between the African Union as an institution as well as the young people that are working on the ground. So that's the work that I do with the African Union. I also work as a program coordinator, and that's where I am. I'm actually at the office. I work for a German political foundation called the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. A lot of people get it wrong when they try to pronounce it. So the shortened version is just that. So that's what I do full time. Brilliant.
And I think this is going to be a super packed interview with a lot of content to discuss, and great to have someone with your experience, your exposure as well on the program. But we're just going to take it back a notch. And, you described a very exciting role, which, allows young Africans to have a voice and allows you to also pass on our sentiments, to that higher platform. But just a question, how did you actually get into this position? Give us a little bit of your background.
I didn't pay a bribe. I actually got the job. So the African Union every 2 years they make a call for applications for this position, which I have now. And in my year, which was in time flies. When 2023, there was 2022. So in 2021, there was a call for application for the next cohort of African Youth Ambassadors for Peace. And the first ambassador, the one we had before me, was from South Africa. So when I saw the call for applications, I was like, okay, this is something that I'm really passionate about. This is something I want to do. And I'd done some bit of work in Rwanda as well for the National Commission for the Fight Against Genocide, working on post-conflict reconciliation. So when I saw the call for applications, it aligned with some of the things that I was already doing, and I applied. The response we got was there was over 2,000 young people that applied for the same position. And the application process, they get other young people to review, to do the shortlist. So instead of the African Union themselves going through the applications, they get other young people to select who they want to be part of the finalist. And then in the end, they select 15 people, so 3 per region. So 3 people from Southern Africa, 3 people from West Africa, Central, North, as well as East Africa. And in our region, there was myself from Zimbabwe, there was a gentleman from Botswana, and a gentleman from Lesotho. So we're the final 3 that made the shortlist. And thereafter, we're invited to the African Union's headquarters in Ethiopia, where we had to do interviews, panel interviews with different people from different organizations, including the SADC Regional Economic Mechanism, people from the East African community. So everyone you could think of who was part of the industry then as part of the interview process. Part of the process was also doing public speaking. So you were given an impromptu topic where you have to present in front of an audience. And then thereafter, they select... it does. It takes us a bit of training. And then afterwards, then they selected one to represent the region. So when they made announcement, Zimbabwe had won the ambassadorship for Southern Africa, and that meant that I had been selected. So in a nutshell, that's how I got the position.
Well, thank you for waving the flag high and, taking that brave step and actually, putting your hand in there and saying, I can serve this role. And I think it's really a role of servant leadership. So, I really commend that. Going into something a little bit local, a little bit Zimbabwean. What is your, in Zimbabwe, youth is a word that takes up many meanings. So from your perspective, what do you call youth? What is your definition of a youth?
Can I say it in Ndebele?
You can say it in Ndebele.
I'm kidding. I think the Ndebele word would be abacha. I've even heard somewhere that, we're microwave generation. In other political spaces, you'd hear people saying, young people are keyboard warriors. All they do, they fight on Twitter and I think all sorts of that. But I think what we have seen, especially in responses to COVID-19, is that young people are innovators. We've seen, different industries being created by young persons to respond to different challenges. In the peace building space where I'm in, we see a young organization that has got, people with very limited resources, but they're able to go into Mozambique where young people are engaging in conflict and fighting, and they engage with their peers and they interact with them. So what I have noticed is that I think young people, especially now, they're change makers. I think that's one word that would encompass it, be it in the workspace, be it in the society, internet. We're innovators, we're change makers, and we bring some, some fresh blood into the system.
Is there an age limit to this demographic? Because some say youth is up to 45. In some conversations I've heard, some conversations I've had, the scale is always sliding. What is the official stance?
So there are two definitions. There's one which is by the United Nations, and United Nations recognizes youth as somebody who's until the age of 25. So after 25, yes, that's quite a tough one. You're youth, you're regarded as a young adult, or I don't know what that means. For the African Union, we have a more generous definition, which is below the age of 33 or 35. It's fluctuating there. But if you're above 35, then you're no longer regarded as a young person. So those are the definitions. And then you have the very generous ones that tell you that, youth is the condition of the heart. So we're always young people. So yeah.
Yeah, I think by UN definition, we need to change the name of the show. But yeah, you've gotten the opportunity to travel around a lot, to speak to lots of young people and hear what's on their hearts and pass on that message to representatives of the African Union.
So 25 years old, don't worry. Any mistake is an income, is a wonderful revenue for you. So I told myself and told my young people, before 20 years old, be a good student. When you do entrepreneur, just learn some experience. Before 30 years old, follow somebody. Go to a small company. Normally in a big company, it is good to learn processing. You are a part of a big machine. But when you go to small company, you learn the passion, you learn the dreams. You learn how to do a lot of things at one time. So before 30 years old, it's not which company you go, it's which boss you follow. It's very important. A good boss teaches you differently. From 30 to 40 years old, you have to think very clearly, you're working for yourself. if you really want to be entrepreneur. When you're 40 to 50 years old, you have to do all the things that you are good at. Don't try to jump into the new area. It's too late. You may be successful, but the rate of dying is too big. So 40 to 50, think about how can you focus on things that you are good at. But when you are 50 to 60 years old, work for the young people. Because young people can do better than you. So rely on them, invest on them, making sure they're good. When you are over 60 years old, spend time for yourself. On the beach, sunshine, right? It's too late for you to change normally. My advice to the young people, 25 years old, make enough mistakes. Don't worry. You fall, you stand up. You fall, you stand up. Enjoy it. 25 years old, enjoy the show, enjoy the show.
In a nutshell, what would you summarize as the state of the young African? How are we as young Africans feeling? I know it's a very, very general thing, but what is a common thread amongst young Africans that you're hearing?
Great. I'm going to look at that and perhaps from the perspective of an insider who is working with the African Union, which is an organization that's traditionally your old people's club. So you'd have, your presidents who are in their 60s, you have people that are running things that are, of the older generation. But I also bring it from the perspective of young people that I've got to engage with themselves. And I think from the African Union's perspective, what I have noticed in the year and months that I've been with the organization is that things are changing. And I spoke about young people as change makers, but also even the institutions themselves are actually starting to realize that, you know what, it's either we tap into the potential and capacity that these change makers have and bring them into our institution, or we're at risk, of being exclusive. So we've seen in the African Union in the past 2 years, there have been several changes. There is now a youth envoy who is the representative of all young people to the chairperson of the African Union. And 7 years ago, this position was not in existence. There was simply no representation of a young person in the office of the chairperson, which is the highest office of the African Union. But now we have that position and it's institutionalized. So meaning that when the current envoy leaves, there's going to be another call for applications for another person to take up that position. And it rotates. The first one was from North Africa, this time around from Southern Africa. So it also creates an opportunity for issues within these regions to be accentuated by this representative of young people. So, and in addition to that, there's also, our office and the position of the youth ambassadors for peace, and one is appointed per region. So that means that if there are issues in North Africa, they've got a contact person where they can air out their issues. So that's one of the things that I noticed from the institutional perspective, and really the effort to mainstream and to bring in young people into the organization. Apart from that, I think from the youth perspective as well, we also see, I think there's still what I call the generational gap. So there's still expectations. You sometimes you sit at a meeting and you can hear that other people are impatient. They want to wipe out the current generation of leaders and just replace them with the young people. But I think what we also need to acknowledge is there's room for intergenerational learning and intergenerational dialogues. The institution needs young people, and young people also need the institution. So that ability to bridge the gap, the generational gap between expectations of those that are in power and expectations of the young people are still a challenge that needs to be bridged. And part of the reasons why that challenge exists is that young people sometimes are still regarded as inexperienced. So when I am invited to speak somewhere, for instance, before I speak, perhaps people have already made judgments based on certain stereotypes. And, they would think, okay, what is she here to tell us? So I think those are some of the challenges we still have. But, there's been progress that has been made, and it's worth acknowledging.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, Cynthia Chigwenya, thank you so much for being on the program. Only a pleasure. My name is TakuDavid, and this has been another episode of the Young Money Show, where we talk to people that are making an impact through their efforts, through their passions, and through their faith.
You can catch us every Wednesday at 7:15. My name is TakuDavid. We're out.
Z